Oklahoma, this has always been a very special day, April 22nd. It's a day that we grew up in our tradition in Oklahoma called 89ers Day. In 1889, there was a land run in which the remaining allotment of lands, which were in the very center of what later was to become the state of Oklahoma, once called Indian Territories, was opened up for settlers to come in and claim. And the way they did it, it's amazing how we create these situations in life which end up being metaphors for life itself. It's so beautiful. What they did was they had a line, and they drew this line, and they said, okay, from this line on noon on April 22nd, year 1889, everyone who wants a piece of land will line up on this line and take off. A gun will shoot, and everyone will take off running, walking, riding. It's amazing. Some people rode horses. Some people had wagons with all their belongings in them. Some people actually rode those old big-wheeled bicycles across the prairie, if you can imagine. They rode out as far as they wanted to or could, and drove. And they each had been given a stake with a number on it, and that was who they were. And they went out and they drove the stake in the ground of the land they wanted. They pulled up another stake which had already been put in its place. Then they had to go back to the land office and show this stake, and they were allotted that land. Of course, there were squabbles over land. There were eventual lawsuits over who got what. There were some shootings over pieces of land. The reason I say it's a metaphor for life is because it's as though we all do this every day. We walk right up to the starting line. We look out into the world and we claim something for the day. And then we make a mad dash for it. And that's sort of how our life goes. Sometimes we get the stake, we pull it up. Sometimes we are able to show and have some kind of validation for that which we did for the day. Sometimes not. Sometimes there's a squabble. Sometimes everything works out just fine. Oklahoma has a song that they use as their fight song for their football team. And it's actually an old song called Boola Boola. As many of you, Boola Boola, Boola Boola, Boola Boola. That's the only words to that song. In Oklahoma, they changed that to Boomer Sooner. Boomer Sooner. And it's called the Sooner State. The Boomers were people who snuck surreptitiously onto the land, made their claim, and waited there with their boomer for anyone who came who tried to claim that land. It was like, partner, move on. This is mine. But you couldn't have gotten here first. I was on the starting line. Everyone else is behind me. Just move on. And those were the boomers. The Sooners are the ones who, when I was actually a lieutenant in the Army, stood out there with his gun and had his watch going, and he said, "Ready, get set, zoom." They all took off. Go. And when they took off a little bit too soon, they were considered Sooners. And everyone tried to identify who was a Sooner and who was a Boomer, and there was all sorts of things like that. So that's how I grew up identifying April 22nd. There's a big, giant parade. People dress in old costumes, women in bonnets and men on horseback. Not much different than every day anyway in Oklahoma, but that's the way they are. It isn't really a lot different, because Oklahoma is a very sunshine state. It's required to have a pretty good sized brim on your hat in order to have enough shade to make yourself comfortable most of the time. Enough about Oklahoma. Now let's talk about the day that we call Earth Day. They're sort of tied together. One was all about land, claiming land, and the other one was about restoring back to a natural sense and having some kind of identity once again with the earth. The people in Oklahoma on that land run day, they were all about claiming land and developing it into something. Building a life on a piece of land. Going to a place where they could actually plow up and have crops, raise cattle, a very agrarian lifestyle. These people are also very, very spiritual, and they are the very same people, and their generations are the same people who are causing the problems now that we have that required us to actually want to have an Earth Day to recognize the Earth. You see, this was a virgin prairie that at one time had nothing on it except buffalo, coyotes, animals living there. There were no Native Americans who lived on this land. They would come in and hunt on the land, but they didn't live there. The only time they lived there later, when it was called Indian Territory, is when they were forced to come to this land because they were asked, put that in quotation, to leave their homelands in the eastern part of what later became the United States and move west. They were supposed to be given this land as long as the grass grew and the rivers flowed. Evidently, the grass stopped growing and the river stopped flowing sometime around April 22nd, 1889, because those treaties were broken and the land was given to other people. Is this just sort of the way it goes? One of the wonderful things, though, about Oklahoma and about this day that we now call Earth Day, is that there is an awareness, a deep awareness of the land as our mother, father. A very necessary thing. You see, the environment there is very, very fragile. Like I said, it's a prairie. The only thing holding down the soil is a layer of grass that's only about an inch to an inch and a half deep, the roots of the grass. It doesn't grow very deep. Without this, the land can blow away. And so, in the early 1900s, after the land had been plowed up and the grass had been removed, along came a period of drought. Along came some very heavy winds, and it blew all the earth away, all that land that had been plowed up. And Oklahoma and parts of Texas became what was called the Dust Bowl. And the people in Oklahoma then could no longer support themselves, and so they had to leave. And they left and moved further west to pick oranges and to harvest food in the Great Basin of California. All those who arrived with their mattresses on top of their cars and so forth, just like in the movies that you've seen before, The Grapes of Wrath, they did arrive like that. They arrived there and they were sort of looked upon as aliens. They were people who were coming to take away the jobs. They were coming from a place with nothing, and they were coming looking for work, and were taking away the jobs from the Californians. Sound familiar? Because they were coming to do the agrarian work. And they were given a name which to most people doesn't mean anything. It's not pejorative whatsoever. But to an Oklahoman, it is. We can Sooners. But those people were all called Okies. Okies, and it was a name given to people as though they were lower than you were. It's not much different in a lot of respects from people who come to work the land, be a part of the land that provides for each and every one of us the lettuce and the carrots and the broccoli, all the things that we, tomatoes, all the things that we see in our grocery stores. We come to pick these crops. It's not the best of work, but it's honest, hard work. They're willing to do it. What does that really have to do with Earth Day? Earth Day is our way of recognizing not only the earth itself, but each of us as humans, our connection to it. How do we treat it? How have we treated it? And what are the answers for some of the problems we've created? The answers, I think, are found in thinking locally. Thinking locally. Acting locally. Being aware that, at one time during World War II, there was a call that went out to grow a victory garden. A little garden. Take a part of your own yard and grow your own crops. For each of us, there is a chance to do this. How many of you like to garden? Yeah. How many of you do garden? Yeah. How many of you would garden if you had a chance to garden? Yeah. It's an amazing thing. Gardening is in itself probably the most productive type of meditation that I can think of. It is a time when we're in the garden when time actually not only stands still for that period, you're in the now moment, not thinking about the past or the future, you're just there doing that. But it's also a time when we synchronize our lives and our rhythms once again to the life and rhythm of earth. It's a wonderful thing to garden. It's a wonderful thing to actually put our hands in the earth, to get down on our knees and be close to it, to smell it, to feel it, to touch it. Oftentimes I see, especially on television and movies, people gardening, doing all their gardening with gloves on. And I'm thinking, how can you really be a part of... I could understand gloves if you're pruning roses or raking or doing many things, but to actually not feel, not to take the sensitivity that's given to you in your fingertips and in your nostrils and feel that. Feel the earth, smell the earth, touch the earth, be a part of it. You know, the Bible says, dust thou art, and to dust thou doth return. It's true in a lot of sense. But I'd carry that even a step further. Stardust thou art, and to the stars thou doth return. Each of us, every atom in our bodies, is a part of all that is. We appear to be separate. We appear so much to be separate that many of us fall for the illusion that we're not a part of the earth, that it is something to be used, exploited, and once it's gone, we'll just go out and buy some more. But we know, deep in our hearts, that once it's gone, so are we. So I encourage you this week, because it's going to be a beautiful week, to observe around you all that is there for you. All the beauty of the earth, all the wondrous things that are there. You know, I find it an amazing thing that we live on this planet Earth, which just so happens to have a moon, which just so happens to create tides, which is exactly far enough away from the sun to get just enough of its heat, not too much, not too little. And its orbit is such that it tilts slightly and has changes in seasons as the sunlight hits different parts of it, as it circles around a perfect orbit around this center of energy. It's been doing this, and it continues to do this for billions of years before the sun finally becomes a red dwarf and expands out and ends life on this planet as we know You know, when I was back in college, you know how easy it is to go to a class and you're sort of half in the class and half dozing and so forth. But you try to at least show up and be there. There was one gentleman who was sitting there, and the professor was talking, and he was in a science class, and he was saying, scientists have determined that the Earth is several billion years old, and I think at that time they thought it was 8.7 billion years old. I think it's more than that now, but that's what they said. And that the sun will finally become a red dwarf. It'll expand out, and it'll burn up the Earth in probably about 16 billion years, I think is the figure he used. Suddenly this guy perked up, held up his hand, and said, "How long?" And he said, 16 billion years. And he said, "Oh, I thought you said 16 million." As though that would matter. True story. Perspective. Perspective is so important. For each and every one of us in our lives, having a perspective of our relationship to the planet Earth. What it is. Who we are. Yes, we're spiritual beings. But this is also, you know, we say that. We say we're spiritual beings having an earthly experience as though one is special and the other is not important. But they're all one and the same. There's no place that you can find that embarkation point, that line where you say, I'm spiritual now, now I'm not. Now I'm earthly. It's all one and the same. It's no different than that embarkation line that they drew in Oklahoma. The starting line, for that particular moment, it was a starting line. But the starting line for each and every one of us in our lives is when we remember, reconnect, remember who we truly are and what we're here for. We're here to learn. We're here to grow. And we're here to realize how tender, loving this place is for us. It's our home. As the song was stated last night, it's our church. It is absolutely a wonderful place. The cathedral above us is the sky. The windows are the places in the trees where the light comes through. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful place. Enjoy it. Enjoy it and care for it. And realize how important you are to this earth and the earth is to you.